In this video, we'll talk about factoring trinomials. A trinomial has the form ax squared plus bx plus c, and we are going to factor trinomials where the leading coefficient is 1, so the trinomial is going to have the general form x squared plus bx plus c, so in front of x squared it's a 1, and we are going to factor trinomials where the leading coefficient is not 1, so we are going to have trinomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, to factor trinomials means to get an answer that can be written as a parenthesis times another parenthesis. So the question is, what is going to go in the parentheses? So the idea of factoring trinomials with leading coefficient 1 is to find two numbers that have the sum s equals b is this number here in front of x, and the product c, which is this number here, and then replace them in this format, x plus the first number times x plus the second number. And here you have a problem that it's already solved, x squared plus 5x plus c. So we look for two numbers that have the sum 5 and the product 6. So a few problem numbers are 1 and 6, 2 times 3. We can also say -1 and -6, and -2 and -3. But out of all these pairs, 2 plus 3 is also 5. So that's why the middle term 5x now is going to be written using the two numbers that we found out, 2x plus 3x. So we have everything the same, x squared and 6, but the middle term instead of 5x now it's 2x plus 3x. Then we notice that we ended up with 6 numbers. So we are going to group them like this, x squared plus 2x and 3x plus 6. Between the first two, a common factor is x, so we end up with x times x plus 2. And then between the last two numbers, we factor a 3 plus 3 times x plus 2. We notice that x plus 2 is a common factor, so we copy it, and then we copy what is left as x plus 3 being the other factor. So taking a look at the numbers that we got, 2 and 3, the answer is exactly in the format that we were looking for, x plus 2 times x plus 3, or x plus 3 times x plus 2. So now let's take a look at problem 2. So in problem 2, I'm looking for two numbers that have the sum 7 and the product 12. So let's see, 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12, 3 plus 4 is 7. So the factors are x plus 3 times x plus 4. Let's take a look at problem 3. We are looking for two numbers that have the sum -7 and product 12. So the two numbers are -3 and -4. Because -3 times -4 is 12 and -3 plus -4 is -7. So the numbers here are going to be x minus 3 times x minus 4. Example 4. We are looking for two numbers that have the sum -2 and the product -15. So it seems like -5 and 3 are great, because -3 times -5 times 3 is -15, and -5 plus 3 is -2. So the answer is x minus 5, x plus 3. The signs are also kept the way we get them. Example 5, we are looking for two numbers that have the sum -9 and the product 20. So again, -4 and -5 multiplied together are 20, and added together -9, so x minus 4 times x minus 5. You can do 6 on your own. Let's take a look at 7 because it's a little bit different. If we take a look at all these terms, we notice that 8x is a common factor, so we should do that before we do the sum and product. So we end up with x squared minus 5x minus 6. And now we are looking for sum a -5 and product -6. So the two numbers that satisfy these are -6 and 1. So -6 times 1, -6, -6 plus 1, -5. So 8x we copy it, and then the factors are x minus 6, x plus 1, and we factor it completely. Problem 8 looks the same. Now let's take a look at problem 9. In problem 9, we notice that we don't have only x, we have y's as well. So I'm going to underline or highlight just the x part. So I'm looking for two numbers that have the sum -5 and product 6. So I ignore for a little bit the y. Two numbers that satisfy this are -2 and -3, right? -2 times -3 is 6, -2 plus -3, -5. So that means our factors are x minus 2 and then x minus 3. But our problem contained y in it, so what if I put a y after each number that I got? So it's x minus 2y times x minus 3y. So you can check by multiplying these together. So x times x, so x minus 2y times x plus x minus 3y equals x times x, it's x squared. X times -3y is -3xy. Negative 2y times x is -2xy. And -2y times -3y is plus 6y squared. So we end up with x squared minus 5xy, because these two are alike, plus 6y squared. So we end up with exactly what we started with. So the factors of this problem are given by this expression here. And now let's take a look at 10, because again, it's a different type of problem. So y to the 6 plus y to the third minus 2. If I set u equals y to the third, u squared is going to be y to the 6. So if we replace them back here, it's going to be u to the second plus u minus 2. So I'm looking for two numbers that have the sum 1, because in front of you it's 1, and product -2. So let's see. How about 2 and -1? If we add them together, it's 1, and if we multiply them together, is -2. Now, for example, 1 -2 doesn't work because 1 times -2 is -2, but 1 plus -2, it's -1. So the contenders are 2 and -1. So u plus 2, u minus 1. But the original problem was in y, so then we go y to the 6 plus y to the third minus 2 can be equal to u plus 2 times u minus 1. But since u is y to the third, I replace it, and I get y to the third plus 2 times y to the third minus 1. And this is the final answer, and we used substitution. Now let's look at the second situation where the leading coefficient is not 1. So we have to factor these, a to the second plus ax to the second plus bx plus c. So again, we are looking to get some values inside these parentheses and times between them. The process is here, so please read it carefully. The idea is to find two numbers that have the sum s equals b like it was before, but the product is a times c, so we'll have to multiply these two together. Then we have to rewrite the middle term b using the two numbers found before, and then factor by grouping. And you have here a problem that it's already solved, 5x squared minus 14x plus 8. So we are looking for two numbers that have the sum -14, and the product 5 times 8, which is 40. The two numbers that satisfy both conditions are -4 and -10, so that meant this middle term of -14x was written using these two -4x minus 10x, so using these two numbers found at this intermediate step. So having now 4 terms, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We group the first two and we group the last two. When we group the first two, a common factor is x, so we have x times 5x minus 4. When we group the last two, we have -10x plus 8, so we factor -2. Very important, when you have a term that starts with negative, factor out negative all the time. So now we notice that 5x minus 4, it's a common term, and then what's left is x minus 2. So we found the factors. So let me try to solve problem 12 completely. So example 12, we have 3x squared minus 20x plus 28. And we are looking for two numbers that have the sum -20 and the product 3 times 28, which is 84. So the two numbers that satisfy this are negative, let's see, 6 times 14 it's 84, but I need negative. So negative 6 and negative 14. So that means the middle term, which is negative 20x, is going to be written using these two. So we get 3x squared minus 6x minus 14x plus 28. We ended up with 4 terms, and we group them. Between the first two, the common factor is 3x, so we get 3x times x minus 2. And between the last two, it's negative 14. We want to factor out the negative as well, and we get x minus 2. So we notice how x minus 2 is a common factor, so we end up with x minus 2 times, and the factors that are left, or the terms that are left, are 3x minus 14. And so this trinomial, now it's factored this way. How do I check? Well, we have to multiply each term, and we should end up with the original trinomial. Let's do another one. Example 13. So 8x to the 6th minus 10x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th. So again, we notice that there is a common factor between all of them, which is x to the 4th. And we end up with 8x to the 2nd minus 10x minus 3. So x to the 4th, it's a factor that we are going to carry with us, but we can factor out this trinomial by looking for two numbers that have the sum negative 10 and the product 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24. So the two numbers are negative 12 and 2. So negative 12 times 2 is negative 24, and negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10. Now, I got these numbers, but you could try like negative 1 and 24 and see, do they add up to negative 10? They don't. How about 4 and 6? Well, they multiply, or negative 4 times 6, they do give, when multiplied, negative 24. But when we add them, they don't give us negative 10. So by trying all those, we ended up just with these two numbers. What does that mean? It means the middle number, the middle term, negative 10x, is going to be written as these two. So it's going to be 8x to the 2nd minus 12x plus 2x minus 3. So here we can say x to the 4th times. We group these two and we group these two. So 4x, common factor between the first two, and we get 2x minus 3. And between the last two, it's plus 1, right? There is a common factor, just 1. There is nothing else. 2x minus 3. So we notice, so I copy x to the 4 because I don't have anything to do with it. So 2x minus 3 is common, so I'm going to write it, 2x minus 3, this one and this one. And we have left 4x plus 1. And so we have factored it. We had factored problem 13. Now, problem 14, you have to solve it and send it to me. And let's take a look at example 16. So example 16 has 5x plus 1 to the 2nd plus 12x plus 1 plus 7. So we notice how this x plus 1 repeats. So I'm going to say u equals x plus 1. So u squared is going to be x plus 1 squared. So our expression becomes 5u squared plus 12u plus 7. Now we are looking for two numbers that have the sum 12 and the product 5 times 7, which is 35. So the two numbers are 5 and 7. So 5 times 7, 35. 5 plus 7 is 12. So we rewrite the middle term as plus 5u plus 7u plus 7. You see, this middle term of 12u was written using these two numbers that we found here. So now we have 4 terms, so I'm going to group the first two and the last two. So 5u times u plus 1 plus 7 times u plus 1. U plus 1 is a common factor, and then u plus 1 times 5u plus 7. But u is x plus 1, right? This x plus 1. So everywhere I see u, I'm going to put x plus 1. So it's going to be x plus 1 plus 1, right? This whole thing is x plus 1. And then 5 times x plus 1 plus 7. So we get x plus 2 times 5x plus 5 plus 7. So that means x plus 2 times 5x plus 12. And that's the final answer to problem 16.